being a grieving kid, dealing with the caring place, I think about we all have shared trauma and we all have things we can learn from together. My situation might be different from somebody else's, but there's a lot of similarities there. If we can find common things that, we've gone through, it's gonna help us build us up. Thank you, thank you. Parents, first I want to say thank you for bringing everybody. It's an honor to talk in front of you and your kids. I'm a Pittsburgh Steeler, I was born here. Traveled around, my dad played in the NFL, Bears, Saints, Colts, Rams, Falcons. But I just want to share, I know some people have heard, but I want to share just how, why I'm here. And I was drawn to Caring Place because I lost my dad when I was 17 years old. My little brothers, my older brother, my mom, we all rallied around each other. We dealt with that loss. And seeing your faces and seeing all the cool things, the quilts, and seeing how you guys are affected by loss, I want to share my story. When I lost my dad, I was away for a basketball tournament, and I just saw him before I left. But we were off at a basketball tournament, and I'm wondering where my mom was, because I didn't know what was going on at the time. I didn't know how she was going to tell me, but it just speaks to the strength of her, because she came and told me that, and I was heartbroken because I just lost, someone I considered a best friend, someone I'd done so much with, but delivering that news as a parent now, I see the strength in what my mom did for me.
We're all gonna experience grief sometime in our life, but knowing that we should feel lucky that we got to know that person, be it a friend, be it a loved one, and take that as a blessing versus looking at the other side that we've lost them.
And for me, I kind of went through, somewhat of a depression after that. Somewhat where, I didn't know what I wanted. I was 17 years old. I hadn't made where I was gonna go to school at the time. And it was rough on me. You wanna go to college, you wanna do everything, but all I wanted to do was be with my dad. And for me, I took myself out of the situation. And I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to make a decision. But my mom stepped up again. We went on all these college trips, and I was sick most of the time. I didn't want to do it, but she was asking the right questions. She was asking defensive coaches how many freshmen you had, how many defensive linemen, is it going to be a 4-3, 3-4? I'm like, no parent really does that. She was going out of the way. She was like an agent out there. She was ready for the moment. And through that, I had coaches step up in my life. I had my mom, I had friends that, were my village. And it brings me to my point, when we talk about, being there for each other. We all have something going on, right? And we all have friends and family who have gone through that situation of losing a loved one. We will all deal with that. We will all deal with losing someone in our life. But that also makes us, stronger because we all share that thing. We all share those moments where we've lost a loved one, but how do we deal with it? We deal with it together. And I'm just gonna say, dealing with loss, I will always deal with. But I wear it like an honor. I wear it like a badge because it's who I am. And because we've lost our loved ones, make sure you wear that badge. Make sure you're proud of the people you lost. I've been blessed in a lot of ways, but I've had a lot of people care about me in the past. And they've made me who I am, but I want to be that way to somebody else.
You can't ever say that the pain doesn't go away, but it might go to a different place in your heart if you can think of the person as your angel. And so they're always with us.
I could sit up here and tell you that I'm living the legacy, playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, being in the same city my dad played college football, playing the sport I love. But you guys can do that too. you guys can live that legacy in your own different way. And that goes for parents too. You guys are the legacy that keeps living on. It's an honor to be in front of you guys. It's an honor to have some fun tonight. Thankful for what you guys are going through. Little ones, I know you can't always verbalize it and you're still going through it, but no, it gets better. It's going to get better. And it might not happen today, it might not happen tomorrow, and you might show it in a different way, but just be open to it. That's what this is here for. Take advantage of this opportunity. And thank you so much, The Caring Place, for having us out today. I know this is, it's becoming yearly, but it's just an honor to be out here. Thank you.
Cameron, sometimes I feel he's like an anomaly because men are told to keep their feelings inside, and he is very open with his feelings. And I'm really proud of that he knows everybody has a space to share their emotions.
How were you able to kind of break it to him that his father passed away?
Ooh, I remember that day vividly. Cam is an older brother, my stepson Craig, who is my bonus son. He's also my son. I don't like to say stepson because I've known him since he was 2 years old. And Craig called while I was at the hotel. And Cameron was with his team. And I was in shock. And a lot happened that day. Wow. I had to get him alone and shared that we had lost his dad. And I didn't know how he was going to react, but I think he needed to be in his comfort zone. So he chose to still play in that tournament at Duke University with his teammates that weekend. And he's the oldest of mine, so I went to him and told him. And then I drove to Virginia from North Carolina so that my middle son couldn't see it on ESPN. He was with his basketball team. And I needed to get to him because Corey watches ESPN more than anybody you know. And I didn't want him to get the news going across the ticker tape. So I drove to Virginia, had my talk with Corey, who was 10 at the time. And I said, "Do you want to come back with me?" And he said, "No, Mom, I kind of want to stay with my team too." That surprised me. So I left him in Virginia, like, wow, I'm leaving my middle son. And Connor was asleep back where Cameron was, my youngest son. And we went back and kind of had a solemn weekend. And then we drove back to Georgia. And started the rest of our lives without Craig.
I think thinking about that situation, right, parents want to do whatever they can to accommodate each kid. I think the thing that, just looking back at that situation, she allowed me to just be me in that situation. She didn't ask me to do anything. She just, whatever you want to do, I'm going to allow you to feel that moment out. For me, she brings up the ESPN thing. For me, through that night, I just watched ESPN and watched the tribute because it was cathartic for me. But, after that, you still have moments where you are trying to find out how to deal with this. And I think, even after that week, throughout that year, it was for me to just figure out who I wanted to be, how I wanted to deal with my trauma. Looking back at my first year in college, you have those, big, moments in your life. And, I went to college, thinking I'm gonna have this grand time, but all I wanted to do was be alone. And I didn't realize I was dealing with my trauma right there. And sharing that with my my future wife that I met on my first day in college. I was, unpacking everything on top of it to her. But, you find your way through how you find your way. And I think parents, it's not just gonna happen overnight. It's not, we just have to be open to the moment, I think, and be willing to let everybody express the way they need to express.
And I was just wondering, now as an adult, from a child's perspective, how would you say, watching the family around you also, the adults grieve, was that helpful or hurtful, or any perspective in that way?
I think it's helpful. We all have things that tug on our strings, and I felt like every big milestone in my senior year, my dad had he had a goal in mind. He wanted to be able to walk. I didn't talk about this, but he was paralyzed on his right side and he was in a wheelchair. But his goal was to walk for my senior day. He wasn't able to make that senior day, and my mom was there, and I just remember seeing her cry and show that emotion. But for a child, I think that's good. Why does crying have to be a bad thing? Why does remembering the good times have to be a bad thing, right? I think that's one thing I love my mom has always done for us. We remember every good part we had. And we talk about it, you can be nostalgic about it, you can have feelings about it, but it's okay to be sad about the good times and be happy about the good times at the same time. I think sometimes we view crying as a negative thing, but crying is important. And I just think, when I look at, my brothers, sometimes they didn't know how to express that early on. And it would eat at them. But we have to be willing to open our hearts for that. And seeing my mom being vulnerable in those moments, that makes me love her even more.
There's gonna be milestones that people have, graduations, his signing day, draft day, but holidays. I always wanted them to know that we didn't forget about their dad. He's still a part of us. And so we laugh and joke and tell things or stories about his dad, and because I never want them to think that they have to keep it inside. And I try to focus on the positive, and even thinking about the situation where your dad was at that time. His quality of life was not him, and that was hurting even more, to see someone not in their quality of life that they're struggling inside. And so, and even for my kids, I know they would wish he was there, but it was hard to see him like that. He couldn't hear, he couldn't eat his food.
And I'll just add one thing. Being back in Pittsburgh, when I got drafted here, I didn't know what I was walking into when I got to experience my dad's legacy. My dad was only here 4 years for college, 4 years. But everybody had a story about my dad, good or bad. And so through that, I got to reconnect with my dad. And I'm not saying that's gonna be the same for everybody, but your relatives have stories too, right? And we all have memories with that person. And it can be shared in a different light, but allows you just to reconnect with that person again. And it's provided a lot of funny stories over the time. We internalize what we're dealing with, and we think, I'm by myself, woe is me. But through being around others who have been through it, it allows us to grow from it and feel stronger because of it.
Kids ended up finishing it for him.
Oh.
See that we see the kids put the heart and the butterfly on there. Just shows it.
Wow. He's gonna love this. Thank you.